welcome to episode 1 of the Landon in My Brain podcast. My name is Abraham Landon, and this is going to be my educational/entertainment podcast where I try to learn every hobby that I have and become a master at every hobby, I guess. I have a lot of hobbies. I've never gone to a doctor to check if I have ADHD or anything, but let's just say I feel like I do only because I have so many hobbies. I just can't focus on one thing. I just gotta know everything all at once and not just dive into one thing. Sometimes I hyperfixate on things, but then that kind of boils over very quickly. Anyways, back to the introduction to myself. My name is Abraham Landon. I don't think you should really care about me, but in order for you to get to know me, I'd like to really, really talk about myself for this entire episode. And further, I would like to have a lot more guests on and really make the episodes more about them and less about me. This is more just a dive into my brain and a documentation of my hobbies and me learning everything. And I want this podcast to be a learning space, a judgment-free learning space. Like an in-between of a Joe Rogan podcast or Eric Kahn, the Pine Park After Dark podcast as well. I also like to smoke weed, so I love Eric Kahn, Dope Yola, and the Goblin, and all those. I don't know if I'll call them weed tubers, but yeah, I guess weed tubers. I hope to be kind of like that. I kind of hope to make content like that as well. I hope for this podcast to be a genuinely fun learning space, and I tend to think that smoking really helps me learn a lot more. I'm better at things when I'm smoking. I don't know why. Or after having smoked, I'm better at things. I'm not sure. Cleaning all of this up, I'd like to repeat that I want this to be a learning, judgment-free podcast to share ideas and learning experiences, life experiences, opinions, and general discussions about things that we enjoy, and mostly things that I enjoy, of course, but that's just going to grow and grow and grow. I'm going to like more and more things as I get older. I'm only 23, so I like to think I have a lot of time left. No days guaranteed, of course, but I like to think I have a lot of time left. So this is that start. In order for you to get to know about my hobbies, I'd like to talk about myself and let you guys really get to know me. I was born in Lakewood, California, to two Mexican parents, one in construction, one working at, when I was born, I think, a mail carrier or mail person, and then a DMV worker. And the construction was actually really, really good in the early 2000s. So my dad was a middle class kind of citizen, which is pretty cool, having two Mexican parents and being middle class. It is not, I genuinely think that is a rare experience. I don't think many kids who have two Mexican parents will live middle class. It'll be a little bit lower middle class maybe, or something like that. Or that's just generally speaking, of course. That's not saying everyone, but yeah. So that was Lakewood. Lakewood is really cool. I lived there for around 13 years. I lived there for 13 years. Went to the same elementary school every year from kindergarten to 6th grade, which, again, I think is a rare experience. I don't think many kids actually do that. Once in a while you move or something like that. Sometimes out of boredom, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes, just a change of pace or something like that. But yeah, most people kind of move, but I think that was a decent amount of time to stay in one place, 13 years. And I wasn't really that good at making friends, so I can't say that I've made good friends along the way or something like that. I really hung out with my cousin Ricky most of the time. He was playing travel ball baseball, basically from a kindergartner to 17 or something like that. He was very good at baseball and grew up around the sport, and I fortunately grew up with him along with seeing that sport and learning a lot of baseball through him. I can't say a lot of it stuck with me because now I'm really into basketball instead, and now my brain is soaking up basketball knowledge instead of baseball knowledge. But I was fortunate enough to go to a couple Dodger games with him. I was fortunate enough to go to most of his travel ball games. My favorite experiences, honestly, great part of growing up. He wasn't my only friend, of course. I wasn't so horrible that I was the loner kid and depresso espresso in my room or like anything like that. But yeah, no, I was very shy. There was a neighbor kid that 2 houses down from me named Albert. He played football and he played travel ball football, and so I played football with him sometimes. I had a Nintendo 64 that was later turned into a PS2 that was later turned into an Xbox 360. And so the N64 and the PlayStation 2 were my favorite consoles. I played those all the time. To Albert's surprise, because he was very outdoorsy and loved football. He was very good at it as well. And so he would be very annoyed when it would be like a week of me just wanting to be like, nah, bro, I don't want to play any football. I just want to play inside. I just want to play video games all day. And but when I got the Xbox 360, that kind of turned around. You know, Call of Duty, Black Ops was a huge thing. Black Ops 1 and 2, and Modern Warfare 3. And I was really playing Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon was my favorite game. I was really more of a racing person, but my brother Gabriel is very good at Call of Duty, Black Ops 1 and 2. He did a couple MLG matches actually, and I think he won. I don't have any record. I don't know what team he played on. I don't know what year this was. I just know that this was when I was a kid, like maybe 10 or 11 or something like that. And that's when Black Ops 1 came out. And yeah, I remember him playing an MLG match for that, and I'm pretty sure he won. But me, I'm not very good at video games. I believe on the Nintendo 64, I was playing GoldenEye 007 and Diddy Kong Racing most of the time. So I was okay at shooters. I wasn't really that good at shooters, but I loved racing games because of the Diddy Kong Racing. And then when I got the PlayStation 2, I got this WWE SmackDown game. I want to say it was called Shut Your Mouth. It was like a 2004 WWE SmackDown game on the PS2. And I played that religiously. That was like one of my favorite games. I had this game with toy soldiers, with those green army plastic toy soldiers that you usually get like at an arcade or something. But it was a video game with them, so that was actually kind of fun. I remember playing those games the most on that PlayStation 2. I'm trying to think. And then when I got the Xbox 360, yeah, it was also Kinect. So I did Forza Horizon, Guitar Hero 3, 4, or I guess 4 was like the World Tour or something. That one was the first Guitar Hero that you could play the entire band instead of just a guitar, and that was like monumental. But yeah, I remember playing Guitar Hero 2, 3, and 4, that World Tour one with the band for the first time. And that was kind of my childhood, just playing video games inside. But along with all of this happening, at around 5 years old, I was diagnosed with arthritis. At the time, it was juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which was later re-diagnosed as idiopathic arthritis. Me being 23, I guess I'm not juvenile idiopathic arthritis anymore, but that's just kind of how it goes due to age. But I guess it's the same disease. So I have systemic idiopathic arthritis, and I've dealt with that since I was 5 years old. I'm now 23, so that's 18 years. I took a ton of different medicines and different doctors. I went to a bunch of different doctors, and for like maybe 4 months actually. But when I first got arthritis really bad, that nobody even knew what I had. Like no doctor knew what I had. But eventually, yeah, I got diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and got a shot in my arm every day called the Kinneret. I don't remember what the actual name of it was, but I remember it was called the Kinneret. And now I take canakinumab, or it's called Alaris, which is like the easy name for it, Alaris. And that's a once every 2 month shot. That is way better. I started taking that around 2012. I was 12 years old. And that's been working very well for me. I'm pretty much in remission. I don't have too many symptoms. I have a pretty bad deteriorated left hip, kind of deteriorated right knee, but everything else pretty much mostly fine. But yeah, that was Lakewood for me. Just an arthritis kid playing video games and trying to play sports every once in a while. But I really wasn't allowed to go play like that, so it was really just like with Albert or my cousin Ricky. And then we moved to San Bernardino shortly after, like in 2008. My dad wasn't making as much money anymore, and we definitely moved from middle class to lower middle class to just, I don't know, whatever's below lower middle class. And we moved to San Bernardino, and that was just awful for me. It was a culture shock, completely huge disparity of Lakewood and San Bernardino. Two completely different cities, two completely different lifestyles, two different environments and places to live. And I was not prepared for that at all. I literally just, my entire life was Lakewood, so that was like, yeah, everything is like this. But no, it wasn't like that. San Bernardino was a much different place. I went for only 1 year of middle school here at Arrowview, and it was awful. I really couldn't make any friends. I still don't have any friends specifically from Arrowview, but I also went to Indian Springs, and that's where I actually met some more people, and that's when I really got to get a hang of making friends and being less shy and actually being a teenager and experiencing life rather than just sitting inside playing video games here and there playing sports with somebody. And this is really when I just decided to dive into mental health and see what mental health is about, because I genuinely hated San Bernardino when I first got here. I couldn't make any friends. People were entirely different. And before in Lakewood, I was sheltered, and I didn't really have a lot of chores to do. I didn't really, I was really spoiled in Lakewood, and I didn't even really know it, because that's just kind of what my life was. But San Bernardino had all these new responsibilities and an inability to go outside because of how different an environment it was, and no neighbors around my age. So for me to make friends or anything, it was just very, very difficult. And I really wasn't able to make friends until high school, and maybe only until like a couple years into high school. And so when I moved to San Bernardino, I really started looking into mental health. I would always been a fan of Kobe Bryant since like I was 8 years old in 2008, when he just decided to go on an insane 3-year finals run, winning 2 out of 3 finals and getting beat by the Celtics, and then getting his sweet revenge 2 years later. Damn, yeah, I miss Kobe Bryant. Absolutely great, phenomenal player, GOAT. And yeah, I miss Kobe Bryant. But anyways, yeah, so Kobe Bryant is known for his Mamba mentality, and I want to imitate that to the best of my abilities and have that Mamba mentality just like him. All due respect to him. I mean, no one can really have Mamba mentality like him, because he's just one of one. Sure, he was very similar to Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant himself wanted to be a copy of Michael Jordan, but Kobe Bryant really wanted to be himself, and he really did make a name for himself. And Mamba mentality was a way to do that, and that was just a way of him bettering himself every single day and putting in the dedication and discipline to work as hard as he could every single day. And so I decided to make that journey. I was 13, 14 at the time of moving, and looking into mental health. I was looking into psychology and analyzing and really diving into the human condition and what people are all about, with what being a human being is all about. And I'm 23 now, and I can say that, so yeah, maybe around 14 to now, I've been studying psychology and how people work and how people think and their mannerisms and what certain things mean, and of course everything roots back to like childhood and how you were raised and things like that. Usually your parents are the root of your problems, of course. But no, I really wanted to blame myself for anything. I really wanted to be like, no, I'm going to be better myself. Nothing will be my fault, because I am bettering myself. And I think I've done a pretty decent job, not to toot my own horn and not to be a little narcissistic or anything like that. I just I don't believe a lot of other people really have worked on themselves that young. I'm sure there are people. I'm not saying that I'm one of one or something like that, of course. I'm just kind of sharing my experience. I just want you to know what it's like, what my thoughts and experiences were growing up. And at the time, I just wanted to know how to be a human being, how to make friends, how to live life experiences, how to enjoy life experiences, and how to be the least amount of a nuisance I could be, and that was doing chores around the house. That was, just being kind to people, really taking responsibility for my actions and things like that, accepting consequences. And I just think those are like the core values of being a good person, of just, doing what you can to be helpful to anyone and anything that you can. And I think that's just like one portion of Mamba mentality, of just trying to be the best person that you can be. And that's what I was just straight up focused on all of high school, full 4 years of high school. And by the time I was graduated from high school, I kind of leaned back. I pulled back a little bit on the psychology reins, and kind of, decided to experience life a little bit more as a teenager, and not as some secluded person in his room learning about psychology, like some maniac that turns into some like serial killer or something like that. Obviously, I wanted to have a balance of being a nerdy know-it-all and being a social butterfly. I wanted to have a balance, and I think life is about balance. That everything is about balance. You can always work out and eat as great as you want, and sure, you can diet 100% to the greatest discipline of all time and never cheat on your diet, but I mean, it's okay to do that once in a while in moderation when there is a balance. If you're working out 300 days, 365 days out of the year, then you can probably cheat on your diet maybe 5 to 10 days out of those 365 days. It's okay once in a while, like once a month or once every other month or something like that. Or it takes a lot more discipline, of course. I think a lot of people just want a quick cold turkey to just be like, I can't even tempt myself. But I think it's great to discipline yourself even more, to just have things in moderation. Enjoy your life, enjoy those things that you enjoy. But if they're not helping you in your life, if it's detrimental in any way, then pull back. Either quit cold turkey, or just find a balance of work life. I like to smoke weed, but I do not want to let it hinder my life. I do not want to be addicted to weed. As many people would like, as many stoners would like to say, weed isn't addictive. It is. Smoking is addictive. Whatever kind of smoking, whether it's vaping, whether that's cigarettes, whether that's weed, whether it's any other drug, smoking is addictive. And it takes a disciplined person to be like, yeah, I can enjoy in something like weed or alcohol, and in moderation, and not let it influence my life and my decisions and things like that. And that's just kind of how I like to live. Find a balance. And I also think that ties into Mamba mentality, and maybe Mamba mentality was more about working as hard as you could, but I find that I want a balance of work, family, and social life. That triangle of work, family, and social life. There has to be a balance of those three in order to really fulfill and enjoy life. Like, you really can't miss out on anything when you balanced all three of those things. What more could you have done to enjoy life? And that's how I think. That's just how I live. Those are like my morals and things that I go by. So I don't want to push that on anyone. I would just like to say that that's also a generalization. These are the kinds of things that I go by. Going back to my high school experience and what it was like for me, I went to Indian Springs for my first 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. And I have always hated school, and even in elementary school and middle school, I was always like, what? My teachers know that I'm smart enough to move on to the next level. I don't believe that they'll hold me back or anything. So I kind of just got floating grades, just B, C, D basically, and I was just satisfied with that. I didn't really care about going to college. I already knew that as a kid that even if I worked my ass off for A's and got the best absolute possible test scores and everything that I possibly could, that I just still might have a possibility of not even getting to college. And even if I did get to college, once I graduate, getting a degree and not being able to use it because I'm not getting hired anywhere, like the degree isn't enough still. And so already when I was maybe like in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, I came to the realization, and this is a very pessimistic way of looking at it, and I regret it as a 23-year-old, but looking back as that age, I obviously was like, nah, this is a perfect decision. I had a pessimistic view of being like, no, it doesn't matter. doesn't matter if I get an A or D on this. If I go to college and get a degree, I might still not even get a job. So what's the point? And so I didn't really try in school. So even in high school, I attempted to try like maybe my first semester or something, and me hating San Bernardino, I just refused. I couldn't do it. I couldn't discipline myself to bring myself to try that hard in high school. So I just kind of ditched school and smoked weed a lot of the time. And yeah, I definitely, as a 23-year-old, regret that decision. But as a human being who wanted to live life experiences, I regret nothing. Every one of my experiences in high school was formative in my mentality, in the way that I was learning. You know, it was just very formative, and I'm very glad that I went through those things and had those life experiences as a kid. Wandering around the city, trying to find weed as like in high school, because you know that's what you do. And of course it wasn't all the time, of course it wasn't every day, but they very much affected my grades. And so by the end of my sophomore year, every class, I want to say, was like 5 credits, and so I should have had like 140 credits by the end of my sophomore year if I passed every single class, and I did not. So I only had 40 credits. I only had 40 credits at the end of my sophomore year, so I was immediately sent to a continuation high school to graduate, because that was the only way for me to make up my credits and graduate on time. I genuinely just fucked up my entire high school resume with that, and I was okay with it again, because I was like, look, it doesn't really matter, you know. And at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but now, of course, I know. And even then, now I'm 23, and a lot of 23-year-olds don't know what they want to do with their lives. People my age are really barely graduating college right now, and finding jobs with their newly found degree, and making a life for themselves while they're figuring out what it is that they actually want to do with those lives. And I know that I would like to be an NBA announcer, and kind of in the background have my hobbies of making movies, making music, building cars, and things like that. And I'll get into those things later. But yeah, I really just want to be an NBA announcer, preferably a head coach. But I'm already 23. I don't have enough basketball knowledge to be an NBA head coach. So an NBA announcer I would definitely feel fulfilled in my life if that was all I ever did, was just be an NBA announcer. But because of my hobbies, you know, I really have to fulfill myself in other places, like my other hobbies, like I'm saying. But getting back to the continuation high school, I met my 2 longtime friends now, Abraham and Alex. Yeah, it was very funny meeting Abraham because we have the same name, so I know it might feel like I'm talking about myself or something like that, but I always called him the other Abraham, being that I was older. Of course, that's not very nice. So I really don't do that anymore. He's just Abraham. But because that's my name as well, yeah, there was some confusion. But Abraham and Alex I met at San Andreas, and they were basically the only people that I still communicate with from San Andreas, and they're the ones that made that San Andreas continuation high school experience tolerable, was hanging out with them. I mentioned that I really liked Kobe Bryant 2008 and his 3-year finals run, and that really got me into basketball. But right around like 2011, I kind of stopped watching basketball, and Abraham and Alex got me right back into it in 2017. And so this was the time of the Golden State Kevin Durant Warriors, and I was basically trying to brush up on everything that I had missed. 2011 to 2017 wasn't that much, 6 years, 6 championships. So maybe in like a year, I had already caught myself back up. But I wasn't really watching basketball like that. I wasn't watching basketball games like that. I was just kind of really keeping up with it here and there. And 2019 is when I really was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna watch basketball, and that's when I really decided that I wanted to be good at playing basketball and try to train that. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not. I'm just not. I'm too old to have just barely started in basketball and have an NBA career. Plus, with my arthritis, it's just not gonna work out. So that was okay. I have no quarrel with that. If any NBA team wants to just give me a random 10-day contract, I will accept it though. That sounds really fun. That's a little off topic though. So back to me getting back into basketball. I just kind of played basketball here and there with Abraham and Alex. I watched watched like the highlights of basketball games here and there on YouTube. Kept up with the player drama and NBA storylines here and there on NBA Twitter, and that was kind of it for a couple years, from like maybe 2017 to 2019, until the Warriors were facing off against the Raptors in the 2019 finals, and that's when I was like really starting to watch NBA games and really wanting to watch NBA games, and Kawhi pulled it off. It was insane. Three-peat. It could have been a three-peat for the Warriors, the first team to do that since the Lakers in 2000, and they didn't pull it off. Kawhi ended that, and he also ended that for LeBron as well. 5 years earlier, in 2014, LeBron could have three-peated, and Kawhi, here comes Kawhi and the Spurs to knock that away, and then again, that was also to break another streak of LeBron going to the finals 8 years in a row. Did not go in 2019 due to injury, and that's not his fault. These things happen, and but yes, 2020 is when I really started watching NBA games. 2019, 2020 was when I really started watching the NBA games, and that was LeBron and Anthony Davis's first full season, even though it wasn't a full season because the pandemic hit and we had a shortened season and the bubble, and I think one of the greatest championships to exist. And I still don't understand why people discredit the bubble. I think the bubble is an even harder championship to win than most, and I can't believe that all NBA Twitter particularly me, I don't know, but particularly me, I always see on NBA Twitter that everyone always discredits the bubble, but I just think that that's because the Lakers won it. If any other team would have won it, they would have been like, oh yeah, sure, they won it fair and square, but because it's the Lakers, they want to discredit it, and particularly LeBron as well. I bet they want to discredit LeBron as well, and they haven't won since, so people really still want to hold that to them. But I really think the Lakers have a really good chance this year. They finally have a really, really decent roster around LeBron and Anthony Davis. D'Angelo Russell is finally back. They might as well get Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, and Brandon Ingram, right? But yeah, that would be it's cool. D'Angelo Russell is back, and Jared Vanderbilt is doing some amazing things on this team. His defense is impeccable. He just really has a knack for being on ball, getting those steals, providing that defense, and getting those easy dunker spot buckets, like those easy dunker spot buckets. I guess teams really want to just sag off of him, and when he's near in that restricted area on defense, but I guess it always leaves him open. The last 4 games, I swear he's gotten like 20 points off of just dunker spot dunks. It's amazing. And that's fast forwarding a little bit though. So I got into basketball again in 2020 in the bubble and everything like that. And this was around the time where I was like, okay, where can I find a career in the NBA and not be physical, and not where can I be in the NBA and not cost my body anything? And I was thinking, an NBA announcer sounds nice, an NBA head coach sounds really nice. I think I would really like to be an NBA head coach, but that's very difficult. Takes a lot of training. I'm only 23. I've really only gotten into it for like the past 2 to 3 years, so maybe in 15 years of more basketball study, maybe I could be an NBA head coach, but that's way further down the line. But I genuinely feel I have the abilities to be an NBA announcer here now to this day. I wish to be like the next Chick Hearn and just be the next Lakers announcer for all time, as long as my lifetime is, at least. But whatever the future holds is whatever the future holds. This podcast is to amplify my online footprint, and really I want to use this as a resume to be like, look, this is what I know. These are the things that I've learned. These are the things that I'm good at, and these are the things that I'm capable of. And have this podcast as proof of not proof, but as evidence that I can back up what I'm saying, and not just be some confident jerk who's like, I can do anything. But no, I genuinely want to learn everything, and I genuinely want to be good at everything, and I have no timeline for I need to do it like this and now. If I'm 60 years old and I've only learned and mastered 4 things, then oh well, that's just how life goes. I hope it's more than that. but again, that's how life goes, and we'll see how that works out. To sum up that jumbled jargon and mess of words, my life goal is to be an NBA announcer and kind of just be an internet personality in general, and also create movies and music and YouTube content and gaming content on as a back burner. The main focus is obviously NBA announcing and just kind of basketball knowledge absorption. So I genuinely could pursue a career in NBA head coaching if I wanted to, or something like that. But I would be satisfied as an NBA announcer and nothing more. But the goal is to be the NBA announcer, internet personality person that tries to achieve everything. I want to be an in between of like Phil Jackson and like Donald Glover. Like I want to be like an in between of Phil Jackson and Donald Glover and Chick Hearn. Donald Glover has done everything. He's a writer, director, actor, producer, a rapper, musician, artist in general. He just does it all. He's a modern day Renaissance man that just knows no bounds and can really just do anything in any industry, and you'd be comfortable seeing him because that's just who Donald Glover is. And I want to combine that with an NBA knowledge like Phil Jackson, the Zen master, the one who really knows how to even coordinate the players who refuse to go by the rules, like Dennis Rodman or things like that. I want to combine those things. These are all just the things that I probably like the most, obviously, and making a career out of your hobbies is obviously the dream. But no, genuinely, I wish to be an NBA announcer, and because I have so many other hobbies, yes, I want to do those on the side, and that will include I want to be a producer. I want to make music. I don't particularly have a dream of like being a music performer or being a musician or being like an artist like that, but I do have a love for older music, and I think if I were to create modern versions of that older music, that it would either make that older music chart again or make this new modern version chart again, or neither chart again. And the goal is to make either covers of old songs or modern versions of old songs that I really particularly enjoy. I apologize if it feels like I'm bouncing all over the place, and this podcast is a mess. This is the first episode, and I'm really trying to figure out all the formatting and the order in which I have to say things. But I want to get back to the like teenage to 20 years. So I had gotten back into basketball. My friends Abraham and Alex really got me back into basketball, and we basically just hung out and smoked together all the time. We tried to get a couple of jobs together. We got warehouse jobs straight out of high school because I graduated from a continuation high school, and not really easy to go to college from a continuation high school, and I already knew that college was going to be not a big guarantee for jobs anyway, so I was just willing to live with it. And the warehouse jobs were pretty okay. My first job was working for a company that refurbished cable boxes and remotes. They did everything. I think AT&T, Verizon Fios, DirecTV, and all these different cable boxes. And my first department was in remotes, and I was literally just like cleaning remotes so that they could be refurbished. And then I got moved to receiving, and I was basically opening all the boxes that all the customers were sending back, like their old boxes and things like that, their old cable boxes. And I worked there for like a few months, and it was with an agency, and I guess I was tardy from lunch a couple times, too many, and they let me go, and I didn't feel too bad about that. I was like, this is my first job, it's just a warehouse job, it's fine. And then I got another one. I worked for a Walmart warehouse in Chino, and I worked there from like December to April, like December 2019 to like April 2020, and March 2020 is when the pandemic hit, obviously, so that was a huge change. but I never stopped working. I never stopped going out because I was still working in a warehouse at the time, and that was still considered an essential worker. And so that was what I was doing. But I just didn't feel that safe in COVID, working at that warehouse. So I ended up quitting. And a few months later, I want to say, I started working at another warehouse. I forgot the name of it. I forgot the name of the warehouse, but it was a tech company, and they sold tech stuff like computers and keyboards and monitors and things like that. And I just basically worked unloading the trailers and then palletizing the boxes and scanning them into the system. And after that, I worked at FedEx warehouse that had another, like, that was like compartmentalized, that one half was the FedEx warehouse and then one half was a Sheg warehouse. And Sheg is like this company that buys and sells college textbooks so that you don't have to buy college textbooks at full price. And so I did that for a few months as well. And then finally, I worked at an LG warehouse, and that was also, tech stuff, obviously, appliances, fridges, stoves, monitors, computers, and things like that. And again, my job was just to kind of palletize them and send them out, load them onto trailers. And that was like 2021 that I was like, okay, I need to stop getting warehouse jobs. Twice during this, I went like 6 months without my arthritis medication, which made warehouse jobs very difficult. My left hip just didn't want to cooperate and keep up with all of the wear and tear that I was doing to it with the warehouse jobs. And I had to leave the warehouse jobs a lot because I wasn't able to keep up the health that you need in order to work in a warehouse. Obviously you need to carry heavy boxes and lift a bunch of things and move a bunch of things and do a lot of physical activity. And with my medicine, I thought that was okay. I thought that was fine. But I went through a big bursts of not having that medication for a while, and it really took a toll. So I was like, I have to stop getting warehouse jobs. And I couldn't. I went like 6 months without finding a single job, and my girlfriend at the time, who's still my girlfriend now. I don't know why I said at the time, but my girlfriend was working at a warehouse, and I decided to work there for a while as well, till we both got laid off from there. Basically because we were both injured, and we called off a couple days, and they were like, can't do that, and we were like, oh. And it wasn't like at the same time or anything, but it was near each other enough that I considered them at the same time. And so after that, again, I went a while without getting a job, and then I got a job at a gas station right by my house. One of my favorite gas stations. It's super fun, mainly because I already know everyone there, and I knew everyone there from before I started working there, and so it was really just easy to acclimate to that. And that's the last job that I've had. I am currently don't work. I'm currently trying to find a job, and hopefully this NBA announcing thing works, and I can be an NBA announcer. But for now, of course, that's a future thing, and I don't have a timeline for that either. But the goal obviously is to do that. But I still need a job to maintain my lifestyle and bills and everything currently right now. So currently looking for a job right now. Continuing this jumping from topic to topic thing that I've kind of been doing this entire episode. I mentioned my girlfriend earlier. She's a huge part of my life, and I can't do this, like, more of this podcast without mentioning her and more about our intertwined lives. And so my high school life, obviously I was very shy at first, and I kind of opened up as a person more and more throughout the years. But my freshman year, I really only had a couple friends. I would say Juan, Jonathan, Jessica, Karen, Janelle, and that was basically the only people I hung out with. And the next year, my sophomore year, Jessica introduced me to all of her friends, and including the color guard. And so I met a bunch more people through there, and that's where I met Natalie, my girlfriend. And we definitely didn't start dating at the time. I was way too shy for that. Didn't think that she liked me, and that just wasn't a thing at the time. But it basically manifested itself over the years. And so my sophomore year was her freshman year, and And then she basically was only there for the year, and by the end of the year she was moving, and she just moved to another city that was kind of like an hour away ish, and that was kind of the last I saw of her. And so I still stayed at my high school for that year. I moved to San Andreas, but that was the same city, so that was no big deal. But she moved to a whole another city, and so she didn't pop back into my life until we were older, until after like the end of 2020, where she got a warehouse job that was fairly close to my house. Despite her living an hour away. And so she just decided to pop by every once in a while after work. And it wasn't like she just randomly hit me up after all these years, like, hey, I'm just going to pop by your house after this work just because I live here. We were constantly in contact, like, through Instagram, Snapchat, whatever social media we were on at the time. And but that was kind of it. We weren't dating. I wouldn't say that we were very flirty, but that's up to me and her. And so we did keep in contact. But that first year, I really got to know her very well. My sophomore year, her freshman year, I got to know her very well. And then she moved, and I was like, well, I guess that's that. But we did keep in contact online. And then in 2020 she decided to pop by every now and again after work, and every now and again became more and more, and then that more and more became every day, and that every day became her moving into my house, and she lives with me now, and we've been dating for 2.5 years, and she's amazing, she's perfect. Big huge portion of my life, and I just thought that story was kind of weird and cool and interesting. You might have an interaction with a person for 1 year or even just once, and you're like, okay, cool, that's that. But something always happens. Things are always meant to be, and that's kind of how I see us. Is that we were just kind of meant to be, it was meant to happen. And so I'd really have to say that her, Abraham, and Alex are basically my only 3 friends. I know she's my girlfriend, but I still count her as my friend. But yeah, her, Abraham, and Alex are my only friends, my kind of a big bubble of people that I actually hang out with. I'm constantly online, so I'm constantly online, so it's not like I really don't talk to anyone, or I don't have any friends. I still have friends that I keep in touch with, and like from high school and middle school and things like that, but it's not the same, not seeing them. So it's really just the 3 of them. I have my 2 brothers that live with me, Adrian and Gabriel, that are also part of that bubble, and then obviously my parents, who I live with. And speaking of them, my dad has done 40 years of construction, and that kind of ties in a lot to me growing up and things like that. Me and him would talk about if we were in a restaurant, like waiting for our food or waiting to be seated or something, we would look at the restaurant and see how it was built and be like, oh, okay, look, they use this I-beam over here. Oh, they use this nice flourish of layered wood paneling here, and oh, they could have done this jointed T-wall better or whatever. And I kind of just grew up analyzing things like that, and so to this day I still have a love for construction, and I basically would know most things on how to build something from the ground up, like build a house or a room or something like that from the ground up. I know how to do the framing. I know how to do the insulation. I know how to do the drywall. I know how to do the roofing. I know how to do the flooring. The only thing I really don't know how to do is electrical and plumbing. But I mean, other than electrical and plumbing, I basically know everything else. And so I do like building things. I don't have the budget or the money to build things currently, so I can't say like, oh yeah, look at all these things that I built. But if I did, obviously I would be building a lot of things. I want to build like a 1-room studio in my backyard. That's just a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room. Just that's it. And then I also want to build like an outdoor smoking patio outside my room that I think would be really cool. And but I don't really have the money for that right now, so those are just future projects, things I write down for the future me to buy. And but yeah, so construction really is a big part of my life as well. And I think that ties into the cars aspect. I was talked about car. I mentioned cars earlier, and cars is just a more machine way of looking at how a house is built. There are all these parts and steps and ways of building a car, as there are these parts and steps and ways of building a house. And there are things that you can substitute, and things that you can use, that like parts that overlap sometimes. Like I think a lot of pipes and metal fabrication kind of overlap sometimes. Houses and cars both have a heating and cooling system. And that's where I think most of the pipes kind of overlap. And so to round everything out, I would probably have to be like to round all of my hobbies out. It would be like construction, cars, just tech in general, like computers, obviously gaming and video games, which also makes me want to have a streaming, like a Twitch streaming channel and a YouTube channel for that kind of gameplay and content and things like that. So tune in for that. And so yeah, construction, cars, tech, basketball, psychology, people, I guess, in general, more than just psychology. Like, I guess I have more of an interest in people and how people work. But I guess that just goes into psychology. Yeah, I obviously smoke weed, so I would like to consider myself a weed connoisseur and have a lot of weed knowledge. Other than smoking weed, I guess I drink a little bit here and there, but I really only drink whiskey, and I don't drink it often enough to be like I'm a whiskey connoisseur. And I definitely don't know enough to say that I would be a whiskey connoisseur, but I just enjoy whiskey as an alcohol the most. And I guess just most of all learning is my biggest hobby. And the reason I even have hobbies in the first place is to learn. Having an interest in something really is sparked by that learning curve of just being like, oh, hey, the normal human being doesn't kind of know that much about this kind of thing. What if I know more than just to kind of like dive into it and be like, no, look, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this. Not to just be a snotty know-it-all to be like, hey, look at what I know. But in order to kind of be a jack of all trades type of person and be useful in every situation. And most of all, be able to talk to anyone about anything. I want to be plopped into anywhere on the planet that obviously speaks English or Spanish, because those are the only two languages I know. So I can't really say anywhere on the planet, but anywhere that has English or Spanish speaking places, and just be able to talk about anything, whether it is cars or basketball or life or philosophy or something as simple as the weather. I love talking and I love learning about people's lives experiences and their way of thinking, and I think everything ties into each other. Everything gives us context. I don't think any conversation is useless. I think every conversation is useful and a display of information, kind of, and I just want to know that information. So even if we're talking about the lamest thing, like watching paint dry or something, there's something to take out of it. Like, how does one stand when you watch paint dry? Do you have your arms crossed? Do you have your arms behind your back? Do you have your hands in your pockets? Are you rubbing your beard like you're pondering thought? Or, and all these mannerisms kind of don't decide who you are, but they kind of give a glimpse into the kind of person that you are based on these kinds of mannerisms. And most of these are generalizations, of course. They don't apply to every single person. Not every person who puts their arms behind their back is more open than every person who has their arms crossed in front of their chest. It's just a generalization, but there's always something to take away from the conversation. And even if there is no conversation, there's something to take away from the body language. And there's always something to learn. There's just that's what I am. That's my way of thinking, and that's what I think I've learned, is that there's always something to learn. and I'll happily intake all that information. I would like to know as many things as possible. Lastly, I know I mentioned that I'd like to make movies and make music and things like that. So I'd like to mention the music that I currently listen to that kind of has shaped me into that way of thinking. And so the likes of like Earth, Wind, and Fire, Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash, The Temptations, Jerry Lee Lewis, the Isley Brothers, Sam Cooke, the Blues Brothers, Otis Redding, Frank Sinatra, Creedence Clearwater Revival is honestly my favorite of all time. Their greatest hits album is my favorite album, like front to back, like beginning to end. That is just my favorite album. Donald Glover's Because the Internet is a very close second, but the greatest hits album by Creedence Clearwater Revival just slaps. I can't also not mention Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, the Supremes, and I guess just like Motown, blues, R&B, kind of soul, funk, even disco, like just that kind of genre of music. Like I would probably say from 50s to like 80s is just my jam. You know, that's just kind of my favorite kind of music. And for movies, I have to say directors are a huge part of my influence, and not just like the movies themselves, but like Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, Edgar Wright, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola. You know, of course, just like movies like Last Night in Soho and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Hot Fuzz and Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and Kill Bill and even Spy Kids and the Grindhouse movies. And it's not even just like those kinds of movies or those kinds of directors, but even movies like 16 Candles or Trading Places, or even shows like The Sopranos or Seinfeld or Fresh Off the Boat, BoJack Horseman. All just great shows, very much leading into what I like about shows and movies, and it's just the humanization of most things and the normalization of most things. You know, a lot of people like to think that they're the main character and that everything only happens to them. Their experience is unique, and yes, every experience is unique, but at the same time, we all share experiences. You know, human beings share one big, giant experience of being a human being. And movies and music let that in. Basically, let that idea in, where we're all connected in some way. In some way or another, everything is connected, and human beings should get along more and be more open-minded and in accepting and less judgmental of so many things. And TV shows and music really help that. You know, it gives perspective and context, and sometimes even leads into the human condition of like just things that you can't get away from as a human being, like the drama of just the normalcy of things, and the drama that humans create in between themselves. You know, the problems that they create in between themselves in communities and different cities and countries and places in the world, where a way of thinking becomes normalized and individuality becomes kind of judged upon. And it's I think movies and music are a way of contextualizing what it's like to be a human being, and lets people be more open-minded and more accepting, and be like, oh, this is how you feel? Oh, okay, I understand now. Maybe I won't do this, or maybe I won't do that. And that's my goal. My goal is to create content that makes you more accepting of a human being and really makes you want to learn and sparks your curiosity. And so to round this episode out, I am a simple human being, Abraham Landon from Lakewood/San Bernardino, and I am a curious, learning person that wants to create a nice, safe space online for people to learn and be curious and ask questions that normally might uh, be belittled by other people or something like that. And yeah, I'm just one person. My goal is to be an NBA announcer or a head coach, and have all of these side hobbies like the movies and music and whatnot. And please join me for this journey. My next episodes will be including the people that I mentioned. My girlfriend will be on this podcast. My friend Abraham will be on this podcast. Other people like my brothers and things like that. Maybe they might be on this podcast. But yes, I hope that this is more of a guest-oriented thing in the future. But for now, here I am, and this is me. And thank you for listening to episode 1.